Morning, everyone. My name is Matt Quinn. I'm the Director of Government Relations and Communications for the Illinois Restaurant Association. I'd like to thank you for joining us for Be Seen Online Marketing and PR Pro Tips for Restaurants. This webinar is being presented by the Illinois Restaurant Association in conjunction with the Cook County Small Business Assistance Program. Now, as restaurants, bars, hospitality businesses prepare their operations as we head into spring and summer, today's webinar will be hearing tactics to reach customers in innovative ways and promote your restaurant. Also, there will be a Q&A at the end of the webinar to get your questions answered. Additionally, today's webinar is being broadcast in English, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese. To listen in Spanish or Chinese, please use the interpretation button in your toolbar. Before we begin, I'd like to let everyone attending know that the Illinois Restaurant Association remains a resource to you as the hospitality industry continues efforts to recover. Our staff is focused on providing guidance, assistance, and relief to restaurants, bars, caterers, event venues, and other hospitality businesses and allied partners across Illinois as we all work to emerge and operate fully again. We're sending regular email updates to thousands of operators around the state with what you need to know for your business, and you can sign up for those on our website. We also have a host of different resources and vendors that can assist you, information about current regulations, a pro bono legal network, and much more on our website at illinoisrestaurants.org. So please feel free to reach out to the IRA team anytime. Also, for the Q&A at the end, you can use the Q&A button in your toolbar to post your questions at any time throughout the presentation. If you see that another attendee has asked a question that you'd like, you can hit the thumbs up icon next to that question so we can see which are the most popular. I'll be watching the questions coming in, and we will do our best at the end to get to as many of them as possible. Now, I would like to introduce our panelists and turn the floor over to them. With us today are Chip Bouchard, principal at PR firm Kinship, as well as Tim O'Malley, CEO of Atima Media and Marketing. We're going to start today with Chip Bouchard, so please, Chip, take it away.
All right, thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure to be with everyone today. My name is Chip, as Matt just shared. I'm the principal of Kinship, which is a hospitality-focused marketing agency. We have the very real privilege of working with large and small operators in Cook County and across the country in the hospitality space. And we work in several different disciplines, PR, social, digital, and community marketing. I myself have been in marketing for about 20 years now, just approaching that. And for today's conversation, I'm real excited to connect with you all as we're at something of an inflection point with everything we've endured in the past 2 years, caseloads decreasing, the mask and vaccine mandates being what they are. I think the change in season. I think we're all sort of looking forward to a renewed optimism of how we can market our restaurants with some new vigor and some new excitement. So with that, I'm going to begin today's conversation with a discussion of who are we trying to target? And I begin any marketing convo with a real conversation about people. This is essential. In order to decide what to do, you have to know who you are targeting. And I think for any operator, the sea seems so wide, there are so many obstacles, there are so many audiences, and your boat very much can sometimes feel very small. And so I always have a real honest conversation about what clientele matters to any of the restaurants that I have the privilege of working with. And they matter to us, not to a competitor, not to a neighbor, but who will actually visit. And so I begin that with an understanding of needing to fish where the fish are, frankly. And so any good marketing convo, I think, begins with an understanding of who the clientele is, not necessarily what marketing channels you're going to be utilizing. That's secondary. So you want to think through both a known and a new audience, identify and brainstorm some of those groups. Here, I include a couple of different starters for you. They're organized in something of a pyramid, right? So at the very top, it is your audiences that have some kind of preference for you. It might be a loyalty program. It client might just be a casual guest that comes in once a week, but really this is the group that, so long as you maintain that level of service and product, there's less to worry about. Just below that are all of those out there that have top of mind awareness of your establishment. And I think for any of us, there are at least 2 restaurants in any one given category that are top of mind at all times for all of us. How many times have we been asked, oh, so what do you recommend for Indian cuisine or for a dive bar? Normally, we can each spout at least 2 answers at any one time. Where the bulk of the marketing decisions need to be made are those that focus on choice, really the center of that pyramid, and those that focus on new audiences. Choice can be broken down into those diners that are looking at us to meet specific needs. Could be occasion, could be location, i.e. I want something nearby that's really easy to grab and go. It could be price, it could be value. Just below that is the connected consumer. I think with the advent of social and digital, today's consumer is more connected than ever. These are the folks that used to be the word of mouth salespeople for our restaurants, but today they're the ones that are really trying to help advocate and share what's new now next with their colleagues, their families, their friends, and so on. The last category within sort of those that make choices actively are those that are attracted to our restaurants for earned opportunities. It could be we have a new promotion, it could be a new partnership, could be new programming, whatever it is that we put effort into that space beyond just the menu, the experience, and the service level. And that's truly, I think, where I focus the majority of my effort in that one particular category most, and we'll have a chance to touch on that a little bit later. In terms of new audiences, you can think about these in 2 different ways. Those that have an unmet need, and by that I mean those that are going to a competitor and they're dissatisfied, or they realize that they now suddenly want to try sushi, or they've realized that they need to look for new options. And then the second, and this is very much a Steve Jobs, Henry Ford kind of thing, and those are those with unknown needs. So they don't know what they don't know what they want until you are able to broadcast to them via marketing channels. And for those, we're looking to offer something relevant. We're looking to reach out to as large a population as possible. And we're trying to be both timely and timeless in how we approach that. Moving forward. But I think what the most important audience of all actually is on your staff. Those are the front of the house and back of the house teams that connect with your clientele day in and day out. And this is sort of straight out of Danny Meyer. This is the greatest love of all. And these are the marketers that can do so much more than any one agency. They're the ones that inspire repeat visitation. They're the ones that inspire word of mouth. They are the front line to observe, to communicate value. For them, the language that they use to convey what's new and exciting about the restaurant or why they need to come back the next time is pretty critical. And memory is really sort of capitalized in that last kind of interaction with a staff member, so that sense of departure. But these are the folks that need to have that warmth, that emotional intelligence to be able to act with your guest, to be able to act as a marketer. And they need to understand that this is as essential as waiting a table. And so these are the people that matter, that I really would suggest focusing not just on your training during the orientation period, but in revisiting this kind of conversation. Okay, so team, how are you helping me to market day in and day out? And so if you do a regroup once a month, I think that's a great opportunity. This is beyond menu knowledge, and it's beyond sort of what are the newest spring updates for your menu. This is truly, okay, so how are we expressing ourselves to guests and really getting them to come back to us and to share the great work that we do day in and day out. Since we've now just talked about who, let's talk a little bit about what. And I think positioning, regardless of what channel you decide, regardless of how you market, understanding who you are contextually is the most important thing you can do. And the thing I would say is this changes seasonally. So it can change seasonally, it can change annually. Being fresh on what you stand for is hugely important to stay relevant, not just for PR, but for an audience that is looking for that new now next. And so a couple of simple exercises, and please feel free to reference this on your own a little bit later, are pretty straightforward in nature, and they just help you to have internal conversations with your team members. The first is sort of like, what is uniquely yours today? It's demonstrating sort of a need state. When I feel this, I want this, so I can do this. So for me personally, a couple of examples are when I have no time to decide what I want to eat during the week and I want consistent quality with a flavor profile, unlike anything I've eaten, I order Andy's Thai Kitchen so I can get my fix of Asian food for the week without having to think. Or when I need to impress a date, I visit a restaurant where the manager knows my name so I can come off as approachable. Or when I want to feel festive for St. Patty's Day, I order a Shamrock Shake from McDonald's so I can feel the nostalgia I had when I was a kid. It's really just quite basic, but it helps you to really nail down the kind of messages you're going to be broadcasting across social, across digital, across PR, because at their core, they need to resonate with that target demographic that I just referenced. Just below this is a little bit of a more in-depth positioning exercise that targets sort of the unique competitive advantages of your restaurant. These can be long, these can be short, but really I would suggest to focus every now and again, could be seasonally, could be annually, with your leadership team, just to make sure you're all marketing accordingly. And certainly with any outside assistance you might have, be it a floor manager who's running social for you, or a PR agency that's lending their support to help broadcast. Next, I want to move into, and I'm moving at a rather fast clip, and clearly we can talk about anything in greater depth during the Q&A session. But I want to remind you, as you're figuring out what to focus on, that there's only one you. So there's only one of you doing what you're doing, and that's exciting. And that allows you to, I think, understand sort of what's unique and special to your restaurant only. I've identified 4 quick areas here and just organized them into 4 different categories. Those are product, place, people, and programming. For product, it's everything like seasonal. We know that menus are going to show asparagus and ramps and fiddlehead ferns and a lot of other seasonal product and protein. Maybe it's lamb coming into the Easter holiday. And so are we timely with our offering? Also, there are, of course, the commercial food holidays and everything that's out there. Any kind of menu changes, trends. We produce a monthly trend report as an agency for our restaurant partners just to stay relevant. Like I'd mentioned, some of them just reading off the top of my head. US Foods reports more than 1/3 of consumers are looking to increase plant-based protein. Cocktails are simple. We're seeing a resurgence of simplicity, the classics, drier drinks, actually, to be honest with you, as from a health positive perspective. Sparkling wines are becoming more of an everyday staple. Natural wines, of course, have been popular for the last couple of years. And then excitingly, if you're an entertainer, Wall Street Journal reports charcuterie boards are back. So really, you can pick up any food publication and see sort of the prognosticators talk about trends for the forthcoming year, trying to match your marketing or your menu mix to those trends, and really looking for new avenues to kind of attract those folks looking to check off or feel like they're trendsetters. In addition, clearly this is a season for patio and alfresco dining, which will resurge in this market at least towards the end of April and into May. The people, so 2 categories: either they are the holidays, the consumer holidays, or it's social catering. Weddings are seeing a resurgence right now. I think I read something last week or the week prior that said spend for weddings is at an all-time, never since 1984 has spend for weddings been as high as it is today. And so that's really exciting, I think, for a lot of us who are trying to target perhaps rehearsal dinners or bachelorette or bachelor functions. And then this next category focuses on programming. So this is just a quick brainstorm, general categories of things you can talk with your team about. Maybe it's a thought starter of like, do we want to do a special class on bartending in spring? Do we want to do a fun competition with some local restaurants, a dine around, a overall, sky is really the limit, and this is kind of your value. At the same time, I want to talk a little bit about what doesn't work. I am not a fan of straight discounting. Unless you're a product-driven business, and so few restaurants are, they're service-driven, discounting is really tough. I think there's a race to the bottom. I think it affects your brand. There are more strategic ways, I think, to target that same consumer that's focused on value. Some of them might include value ads or menu ads. Chicago has a restaurant week right now, and one of the things I counsel to most of my restaurants is, okay, you can provide sort of that discount to fit within those brackets, but also add the upcharge, add the value add to the menu. Is it a special cocktail offering? You can provide a new experience. Urgency sells. So sign up by this date. Nothing sells quite like waiting in a line. Or scarcity, limited time availability. These are all things that are a little bit more strategic than a straight discount. I'm going to move a little bit faster into what. And here's just a general note about today's consumer. Call it the millennial, that 20 to 40-year-old. He, she, they is a much more conscious consumer, one that cares about where their dollar is spent. So I think they're looking very much nowadays for connection because of COVID, because of isolation, because of the separation we've all endured. They're also looking for a connection to the operator, whether that is to the waiter or wait or server that I'd referenced earlier as that frontline marketer, or to the values of the operator themselves. It could be to the neighborhood. It could be to something larger, like a marginalized population. But I will say in general, what's old is new, but just slightly different. I think there's an expectation of connection and of feeling human again, of a warmth and empathy that we haven't seen in quite a while. But today it's guided by technology, and it's guided by more choices than ever. It's something to be mindful of, I think, as it affects our tone on social and things like that. And then moving into where, this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. And this is a really complex diagram that folks spend their careers kind of investigating and learning more and staying up to date. It's something called PESO, which references paid, earned, shared, and owned. And for the sake of my part today, this is going to complement what Tim shares a little bit more in depth with the digital offering and the paid offering in part 2 today. But this is basically the universe of marketing tactics minus some of the programmatic and paid out of home or even digital offerings there are. And what it does is it's the universe out there. There's the paid media. Could it be social media ads or boosted posts, lead gen efforts? There's the earned media. So using that PR agency to invest in that third party article about it. There's the shared media, which is social. It is online platforms where people come together. And then there's the owned media. And this category is your e-blast. It could be your own websites. The thing to remember here, and I think what really democratizes marketing and what should make you all feel great, is that we are all equal when it comes to creativity, right? So you need to do what works best for you. Don't do it because a competitor is doing it or you're trying to imitate or you spend many dollars on a PR agency. Do it because it matters to you and it matters to those target audiences that I'd referenced earlier. So establish those resources, identify your budget, and then make choices based on this whole universe of possible marketing opportunities. You don't need to do everything at once, but I would be flexible enough to try. So commit to a choice, evaluate the return on performance. If it's social media, look for things like conversion to your reservations platform. If it's an e-blast, look for open rate and click-through rate of that blast itself. You really want to be driving sales just as much as you want to be driving top of mind awareness or brand building. And then Derek, if you don't mind moving us forward. This is just a quick to-do list. It's at a glance. So taking what I just shared, that really academic Venn diagram, and turning this into sort of a simple a simple to-do list. So if you were to give me a promotion, let's say for the opening of a patio, I'm going to ask my marketer, okay, so how's this showing up on digital? How's it showing on social? How's it showing up in-house with the media or with the community, knowing that I'm investing in these resources, right? For my last comment. And really, this is something of a checklist to make sure you're operating on all the different channels where those fish live, as I first referenced. And the thing to remember too, I will say, is you're always sort of face marketing with sort of an optimism, right? Your financial circumstances may be dire at times. It may not be quite where you want them to be, but actualization, I should say, is everything in marketing. So you want to create a to-do list like this. You want to decide on those resources based on the optimism that they will perform for you and they will improve your business. I would simply, if they're not working, just remove them from the mix and double down on those areas that are. And then one more into sort of in closing, and forgive me, I did talk rather fast for you today. I did want to just share, as you're beginning all of this, like, why would you stop now, right? Your restaurant is a living, breathing thing. We need to sustain preference for it, meaning we need to make sure that those guests that we are meeting are going to choose us the next time. And it's not good enough to have a new audience. We need to have a sustained audience and repeat guest visitation. And at the same time, maybe now's the time to create a loyalty program. We had one partner in the Chicago market invest in a loyalty program during COVID and saw a 12,000 person over the course of 6 months, a 12,000 person loyalty program or loyalty guest program blow up on that, which was really exciting. Just a neighborhood restaurant group, nothing too high profile, but it demonstrated that connection that I'd first talked about from the server to the guest. And then you want to use them to evangelize, particularly reputation management and social media. And then think ahead to the fall and holidays. Like, before you know it, we're going to be turning the corner on the 100 days of summer. It's going to be looking at fall. Okay, so how are we investing in the restaurant experience when the patio is no longer operable? And your teams need that lead time to be able to plan accordingly, whether it's thinking ahead for menu development, or, hey, how are we going to have the servers address some of these new offerings? In general, I will say, like, the best thing about marketing is, like, every day can feel like the first day, the first day of your restaurant. And so I'm one of boundless optimism, I think, and I hope you are too. So with that, I'm going to turn it over back over to Matt or to Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Chip. Awesome, awesome information and advice. Really, really appreciate it. Before I turn it over to Tim, wanted to let everyone know that yes, you will receive the recording of this webinar and the presentation shortly after we conclude today. So, I know we're going over a lot of great, really useful information. You'll be able to digest that and review it afterwards. So thanks again, Chip. Now I will turn it over to Tim O'Malley, CEO of Atima Media and Marketing, for the next part of our presentation. Tim?
Thanks so much, Matt. I appreciate it. And I wanted to just give Chip a great pat on the back for an awesome strategic framework for marketing restaurants. Really great thoughts there, and a nice tool for hopefully all of our participants here. So as Matt said, I'm Tim O'Malley. I'm CEO of Atima Media and Marketing. You might know us, our former name was Concierge Preferred. We've been around about 21 years here in Chicago. First of all, I want to thank you for joining us, and thanks to the Illinois Restaurant Association for inviting me. And also thanks for the hard work that the association has been doing to support the industry throughout the pandemic. You guys have been really going at it for a long time now. So important for our industry. Ultimately, Atima Media and Marketing specializes in two things. We can help restaurants like yours get more business from Chicago's visitors, and we can help you fill your private event space. So those are sort of our two areas of expertise. In addition to some of our digital products and services that we'll touch on today, you may have heard of our Concierge Preferred magazine, which is currently the only visitor magazine in Chicago's hotels, our Chicago neighborhood hotel maps, the upcoming Hospitality and Tourism Summit at Navy Pier, or our Chicago Planner Master Classes, all some of our brands that you might have heard of. I've worked in a number of restaurants over time, including running my father's restaurant. So I have a little bit of an idea of what your struggles are, although mine is perhaps a little dated. I give you a lot of credit for what you're going through and how much resiliency and innovation that you've shown. I hope our presentation here today gives you some inspiration, some ideas, and some tactics that you can apply to your own restaurant. So let's go ahead and jump in. Next slide, please, Derica. Thank you. So you can target specific businesses or specific buildings, I should say, around your restaurant and serve them programmatic ads. So if you don't know what programmatic advertising is, it's basically the process of serving the ads that you see on your phone. So the definition is programmatic advertising is the use of automated technology for media buying. It utilizes data insights and algorithms to serve ads to the right user at the right time and at the right price. To do this, to do this tactic of targeting specific restaurants, you draw what they call a geofence, which is a digital fence around the four walls of the specific buildings that you're targeting. And then you can serve ads to anyone inside of those geofences or within those buildings. So in our case, we could then share a report that shows how many people came to your restaurant from the buildings that you targeted. Next slide, please. So according to the hotel occupancy projections that I've seen, tourism is expected to be strong this year, though business travel will lag. And it's not going to be as good as 2019, but it will be much stronger than last year. So it's a great time to target visitors. To target hotels with your digital ads, you'd use this exact same method as we just discussed for targeting buildings around your restaurant. Clearly, you might have a different message in terms of your ads because this is out of towners, but it's the same tactic. Next slide, please. You could also use that same technology to target conventioneers at McCormick Place. Again, geofencing around McCormick Place. You could even cherry pick the shows that you'd like to target by dates, depending on the demographics of the shows, how it relates to your business, your offerings, etc. Next, please. So depending on who you're working with for digital marketing, you can tap into what they call a food optimized audience and target people in that audience with your ads. So for example, our digital partner does so many of these campaigns that they can collate an audience from past campaigns to put people who have showed interest in restaurants together in one audience. So then once that's done, obviously, you can target those people with ads by geography or demographics like age, income, sex, etc. Next slide, please. You can also target those people within a specific geographic radius around your restaurant. If it's a mile, 3 miles, the whole market, whatever it might be. Next slide, please. So this is a novel targeting method. We can target people who have dined at your competitors in the last 90 days using a method called historical geofencing. So the ads are served through Facebook and Instagram. This isn't something that you can do through your own Facebook and Instagram accounts. I will say this, it's highly effective, and the reports can show conversions so you know what the ROI is in terms of how many people showed up at your restaurant as a result of this campaign and from which other restaurants or targets that you focused on. So very substantial opportunity. Next, please. So keyword retargeting, so you can target folks who have recently searched for specific keywords. So for example, if you owned an Italian restaurant and you wanted to reach people who have searched for Italian restaurants near me, we could serve ads to those folks with a targeted geographic area within that targeted geographic area through programmatic advertising. So clearly, if you were doing Italian restaurants near me, you'd want a tight radius that would serve your customers as they're searching for this. And then you can serve them retargeting, which is ads that will follow them basically throughout the internet for the next 30 days. Typically, it can be longer than that as well. Next slide, please. By the way, that retargeting, a good way to look at it is if you've been online and bought shoes, for example, and then you see or shop for shoes, bought shoes, whatever, and then you see shoe ads following you around the internet for 30 days, that's what retargeting basically is. So you could use that to, again, with that concept, to target people who have used specific search terms, and you could come up with a list of those search terms ranging from Italian restaurants near me to best pasta near me. There's obviously a litany of those things. So in terms of serving ads to your customer audience. So this is where you can target folks who have recently This is something that you can do for yourself. You can upload your email database, your contacts into Facebook, and you can serve them ads directly. So it's a great way to increase your customers' frequency of visit by keeping top of mind with that specific audience and doing it on a consistent basis. So organic reach of social posts is so minor these days. In general, if you are not paying to boost your post, you're really not reaching that many people. So plus the cost of social media advertising has literally doubled in the last year due to all the changes for opt-in with Apple and the trickle-down effects. So that being said, a custom audience is a good way, a cost-efficient way for you to stay in front of your customers and your best prospects, really, which are your former customers, and increase that frequency of visit. Next, please. So content marketing is the process of creating content to support your brand message, and then you distribute it through different channels. So conceptually, the idea is to reach people where they choose to get information. So much of the time we spend deciding where people should find our messages, when this is a great way to say, to acknowledge that people find their information in different ways. It ranges from websites to newspapers to magazines to online to radio. There's a million different channels. So for our example here, we at Atimo, we have a content marketing program where we write an article about your restaurant, then we distribute it through our email newsletter, through paid social media and or paid programmatic advertising, websites, Concierge Preferred Magazine. So this gives our clients the ability to reach different audiences within the medium that their prospects and customers choose. So you can also leverage this content to distribute through your own social media, which is great because you work with the content marketing team, whoever it might be that you're working with, to identify what is the messaging that you want. And if you have a third party that is providing that messaging to your prospects and customers, it's much stronger than, as a third party can say, you do X well as a restaurant, and people are going to hear that in a much different voice than if you as a restaurant owner or manager tell people that you do X well. It's just human nature. The next slide, please. So I have, in most of these slides, I've shown that reporting can show conversions. And so I thought I'd give you an example of how a report, what a report looks like. So here's an example of a report from a campaign that we did in February for a restaurant. It will give you an idea of the capabilities in terms of tracking results with digital marketing. So you can see that this campaign had 350,000 impressions, 433 clicks, an above average click-through rate of 0.12, and most importantly, 165 people came to the restaurant because of this campaign. So if you think about the return on investment yourself here, with 165 people that came in, the average group size for this restaurant was 2.5 people per table. That's 412 people that came into the restaurant as a result of this campaign. So now you multiply that with your own average check per person to get a sense of what ROI looks like. FYI, the cost here was about $4,500 for this campaign. Next slide, please. So increase your email frequency. Email still has the highest conversion rate out there. And most businesses don't push email frequently enough, always worried about, inundating email boxes, which there's a line between what I'm saying and that. And here's a pro tip as well. Most email software programs have a send to unopened emails feature where you can send a second set of emails to folks who didn't open that first email. So you did the work, you built the email, you send it out, and only, certain percentage, 15% of the people open it. You can, there's usually a toggle switch that you can use on your software, your email software, so they'll send automatically to those who didn't open it, wait 24 to 48 hours because most emails open within the first 24 hours, and then do that again. If you don't have the toggle switch, I would suggest you go in and figure out how to send it manually yourself to non-opens. It's not much work, and you're leveraging all that time you took to create a beautiful email, the messaging that goes into it, how you're managing your database and trying to build that email database of your customers. So it's just a good, efficient way to expand the reach of something you've already done a lot of work for. Consistency is also very important in terms of this. So we definitely recommend using a planning calendar for your emails. So it's not something you respond to, it's something that you align with, to Chip's point earlier, when he was talking about some of the strategies for campaigns and for holidays and so forth. You should have an email calendar that mimics that, or reflects that, I should say. So it's also another pro tip here, important to check your subject line before sending. I use a tool called subjectline.com. It's a free tool. I would write that down. I know Matt said he's sending this out, but I would definitely use that because it'll give you a score for the subject line so that you know if it's a good subject line or not. It'll also give you advice on how to make it better. Next, please. So create an email newsletter to stay top of mind with your best prospects, your customers. Tell stories, don't just sell. So talk about your employees, your charitable activity in the news, new offerings and promotions. Chip covered a lot of this, so I won't spend much time on this. But again, increase your frequency, hit the non-opens, and reuse this content that you use for your newsletter in your social media. Again, think about creating content that you can multi-purpose and use across different channels. Next topic, or next slide, I should say. Excuse me 1 second. So I also wanted to highlight marketing automation. And this is basically decision tree driven email marketing. So you've all seen it, whether you know it or not. Sometimes it starts with a form like this example that I have here. And this form, once someone fills it out, would trigger an email campaign once it's filled out. So you can also write email campaigns that build on the inputs and the responses from your customers. So for example, let's assume that you were doing a targeted email campaign to your own meeting and event planner database because you want to sell parties under 50 people, okay? So you can sell your private event space. So you might pre-write 3 or 4 emails, and then you input them into the system, and then the system takes it from there, customizing the message with the names of the people that fill out the form or the emails that you input. So for example, for this example, I should say, the first email, you might introduce yourself in the details of the special holiday program that we're talking about. Then the second time, you might send to the non-opens, which means you resend a similar emails, or you resend a similar email to planners who didn't open the first email. Maybe you do that 1 week later. On the third one, you might, for example, you might send one to the emails that were opened. So send them an email to set up a meeting based upon their positive response to your first email. So you wrote the first email, they respond back, then the system sees they responded back and it says, hey, thanks for responding to me. I'd love to get on the phone and talk to you. Here's my information. Here's a Calendly link for you to book a meeting with me. But as you know, in booking groups, timing is so important. So with all of the restaurants that we work with, most of which are still scrapping to hire people, still trying to make the most of a smaller team, this is a really efficient way to stretch the reach of your team and stay in front of your clients and prospects better without a lot of extra time. So it takes some time to build it on the front side, no question. But once you get it up and going, you get a lot of reach, and you'll get leads funneled to you that you're not doing anything for except for following up on these emails. So from there, you can get the idea of you can build out a campaign, taking it down different alleys, be it different focus campaigns in terms of different topics, different audiences, etc. So it's a great, again, opportunity to find efficiency, especially now with smaller staffs. Next slide, please. So I just mentioned the meeting and event planners. We do a lot with groups and meeting and event planners in our business, and we're hearing that phones are ringing, corporations are booking again. So right now is a great time to send an email campaign to planners. So if it's not on your list, I would start thinking about it, because I heard someone say, one of our large clients said they had 2 corporate books booked last week within the same week. So there's still this really tight window for booking events and so forth, but that window is going to get longer as we go throughout the year and into next year for sure. But it's a great time to be reaching out and telling your story to planners about your group space and so forth. So that is the end of my presentation. If I can help, please reach out. I know Matt's going to share my contact information, tim@atima.com. My cell phone's there as well, 622-3418. Feel free to reach out. Love to help you guys, and thanks again for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Really appreciate that deeper dive into the programmatic campaigns and approaches with ads. So thank you very much for sharing your insights. So let's dive into our Q&A. We've got plenty of time here. As a reminder, you can ask questions at any time. If there's questions you really want answered, you can upvote them to make sure we get to them. But please, these are the experts. So shoot your questions in whenever you have them. So first question, I'll ask you, I'll ask you, Chip, and then Tim, you could chime in. What are your thoughts on brand ambassador programs that restaurants use?
I am a huge fan of brand ambassadors. I think the definition varies. Some call them brand ambassadors, some call them influencers. Why would you not want to amplify your voice? I would say you want to do so, though, with a very targeted mission. So you want to give them a feature of the restaurant, a promotion, something very specific. General awareness is really hard to track more often than not, and you know it when it's right and when it's not. So if you are tasking them or enlisting their help, just make sure it gets very specific. The other thing I would say is with any sort of great marketing apparatus, you're looking for network effect. So you're looking for one person that shares a message, who then shares it with 2, who then shares it with 5. If you're able to do that with a brand ambassadors or influencers call to action, even better. So the more you can do that, or frankly, with other community groups or organizations that are there to support you too in your local neighborhood.
Thanks, Chip. Tim, anything to add?
I think that really says it all.
All right. So next question, we've got, we're working with the Cook County Small Business Assistance Program. There's several restaurants, smaller places in the suburbs that are on and downstate as well. Any specific tips for getting more customers? Say, I got a full service restaurant in the western suburbs. Any specific tips that would work well for them versus a downtown Chicago restaurant? Tim, you want to start, and then Chip?
Sure. So I would start by thinking about what service or product that you serve is a unique selling proposition that would make your restaurant a destination. So if you have that, you have the best ribs on the planet. If you have the best service, if you have the most unique space, whatever it is that would make people want to drive to come see it, you have to figure out how to package that message and make sure you lead with it to get people to drive. If you don't have that, you got to figure it out. And in the meantime, you'd have to just focus on a smaller radius in terms of getting people. It's easier to obviously to get someone to drive a couple of miles to come to your place than it is to get them to drive 10 or 20 miles. So some of the digital stuff that I talked about earlier, some great tactics to get people within that small radius. Probably some of the destination driven stuff would fall into Chip's area here.
Yep. Yeah, and I very much agree with Tim in terms of just locking sort of what makes that special visit out worthwhile. There was a New York Times article by Priya Krishna in January that was America's Next Great Restaurants Are in the Suburbs. I would definitely recommend reading that. Great little primer on sort of the state of things. The only other point that I would make is tie in the marketing of your restaurant to something larger that's happening in tourism in that suburb or in that marketplace. I know this is DuPage, not Cook, but there was an exhibit, a Frida Kahlo exhibit that I think a lot of area restaurants tied in their offering to a visit to that exhibit too. So that's a good way to pull in sort of that city traffic as well.
Makes sense. Thank you both. So what are some of the best loyalty or programs or specials that you've seen? Chip, do you want to start and Tim?
Yeah, I'll say simply like unless you're Starbucks, right, who has the most successful loyalty program in the country, if not the world. Um, I think for a local restaurant, you want to tie the reward into an experience as opposed to a point or a dollar. Dollars work better than points, but I think the further down you get or the more complicated you make it, the more kind of convoluted it can be. And so if you make that a real experience, right? So visit my restaurant 3 times and we will celebrate your birthday for a party of 3 with whatever thing. Really make the need kind of very transparent and something that we all can understand and appreciate. Things like classes or celebrations or birthdays or things like that. That to me has worked better than an accumulation of points. And if you do have to choose between points or dollars, I would definitely say dollars.
Okay, makes sense. Tim, anything to add?
Yeah, points don't pay the bills, Chip. That's for
Yep,
sure.
exactly.
No, I'd agree with Chip, and to the extent you can tie in, to either your unique selling proposition that we're just talking about, what makes you a destination, or to Chip's point, to make it, how you can leverage, give them the opportunity to have a better and more unique experience by being more loyal to you, is another way to look at it, because that way it's not all about just discounts and so forth. So I'd say focus on those things.
Thank you, Tim. So here's a good question, and I think you can talk about it without bashing any of your competitors, or maybe you can just speak more broadly about things not to do when it comes to PR and marketing. But what are some red flags or some things you really want to make sure not to do when either you're handling your own PR marketing, or you're trying to look at or you're working with a firm or a company like yours that specializes in PR and marketing? What are some things you don't want to happen, or things that don't work? Tim, you want to start? Or oh yeah, Chip, you can start.
No, Tim, go for it.
So can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. So the question was, what are some red flags to look for when choosing a PR or marketing company to work with? But maybe phrased another way, maybe just what are some red flags, things that don't work, that don't work, that you would avoid when it comes to PR and marketing for restaurants and hospitality businesses?
Yeah, I mean, for me, we've worked with a lot of customers that work with PR companies, and some of the things that I've heard over the years, red flags would be, make sure that you have some very specific goals for the company. Make sure that there's a regular check-in to assess results versus those specific goals. And if the company is a little fly by their seat of their pants and feels like they're trying to avoid those things, that's a red flag for sure. Also, from a pricing standpoint, are you doing it by project, or is it a monthly ongoing retainer? Understand what your goals are so that you can decide, is it a project driven, PR retainer, or is it an ongoing PR retainer, so that you don't make the wrong decision there. That's a way that you could potentially lose money and effectiveness. Those are a few simple things that I've learned over the years, heard from our clients. They've really learned. So, Chip?
I think Tim nailed it. I think, and this isn't specific to PR, but any kind of vendor, you want to be focused on outcomes as opposed to process. Process is important, don't get me wrong, reporting and in a great coherent set of plans, but those that are just learning the industry will sometimes lean on that more than they will actual results. So you want to make sure that those results are really kind of leading the conversation as opposed to the processes themselves. And that's just being real. And then the thing that I think if I was on the opposite side of the table, that I would be most concerned about is who's leading both the strategy and the creative, right? So more often than not, it's my PR agency is asking me what we have going on as opposed to telling me what we should have going on. And when you get into that kind of relationship, it becomes a little bit a little CYA as opposed to a little bit more forward thinking and really kind of focused on sort of what the restaurant or restaurants need.
Thank you both. That makes a lot of sense. Great advice. So, and we got several questions coming in. We got still have plenty of time. So remember, shoot your questions in now, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. So, question for both you, maybe Chip, if you want to start, and then Tim, how much, and this maybe kind of goes along, I think Tim had mentioned it about email frequency and things like that. How much is too much marketing? Should I be doing some or a different form of marketing every single day, every other? How should I be thinking about that, or what that threshold is?
That's an awesome question. Let me start holistically and then drill down, because it's going to be different in each of the different areas: paid, earned, shared, etc., that I talked about earlier. At its most basic, it's not enough marketing unless your restaurant is full, right? Like if your restaurant is full, if you're on a wait list, that you can say, okay, we've reached sort of the optimal amount of marketing that we need, right? Beyond that, you've got a lot of bullets. Like you've got a lot of things that you can do, whether it's with actual outreach to media, or it's social, or it's e-blast, or it's the brand ambassadors that we had referenced earlier. There are a lot of different things. And I will say with each of them, there are sort of industry standards. I personally would not be e-blasting, although we have a lot of partners that want this. I would not be e-blasting more than twice a month, or once a week, or twice a month, right? I would not be posting to social around the clock. You're going to see engagement numbers decrease, but there's a way to mitigate that. You post to the feed as opposed to stories or reels. It's a quick, easy way to balance there. And so the intention of the question is right. There needs to be a balance to what we do, but marketing should never stop. It's just a question of moving from one channel to another to make sure you're always kind of meeting your needs.
Absolutely. Tim, anything to add?
Yeah, I think Chip's right on target. I would say, that the risk is just like he said, keep marketing, understanding that if you're busy today and your book's solid, maybe tomorrow someone opens not too far from you and that changes overnight. So you need to keep banging the drum in terms of what makes your business unique and why people should come visit you. And clearly, there's that grid that Chip showed earlier, the 4 circles, peso. That is a good way to look at it, because you can do different types of tactics in marketing over time, so you're not flooding one channel or annoying a specific group of people. I would definitely consider looking at that, and again, planning, being strategic about your communications methods, and doing them in parallel, not necessarily focusing on one too much too often.
Thank you both. Good question here. Should I respond to online reviews, negative or positive?
I have a very strong feeling about that. And my answer is absolutely. The online space is an extension of the restaurant space, particularly for today's digitally native consumer, right? And so why would you not use the opportunity to thank, to compliment, to reward, to internalize feedback that you're receiving? More often than not, when we look at website traffic for most of the restaurants that we work with, Yelp is within the top 5 website referrers, and that's really important, and so it is. I look at it as an extension of customer service. Don't get me wrong; it is very frustrating, or can be very frustrating with the trolls out there, right? And if we're being honest with one another, it's not always the most thankful part of the job, but it is critically important, if you ask me.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if you're working in a restaurant, you're thrilled to talk to someone who is giving you compliments. Your team did this, this food was so great, blah, 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 and you want to respond in kind. And on the other side, if you have a pissed off customer, you want to be able to go talk to them, understand what the problem is, understand if it's something that you can learn from to avoid in the future, and then see if you can turn that customer around to not go out and spread bad news, any more bad news, and come back. And so if you're going to take that approach within your 4 walls, you got to take that approach, on as well.
That makes perfect sense. Great advice, both of you. Thank you. What are some tips? This would be for Tim, and then Chip, if you have anything to add. What are some tips to get in front of my concierge, or the concierge community?
So there's a number of things you can do. There is, go desk to desk, get someone from your team to go visit. There's roughly 90 downtown hotels. It takes time. You need to make sure you train those people so they understand how to interact with concierge, especially given right now they're, like so many of us, are doing two jobs. So you have to really understand how to communicate with them and when. Don't be overwhelming to them. Let them do their job and figure out how to talk to them. That's the first basic thing. And then you want to build relationships. If you have the time and wherewithal to do it. At Concierge Preferred, we have some services. We have an ambassador program where our concierge ambassador will go to the 90 downtown hotels on behalf of a restaurant. We can go and do surveys with the concierge that way. We have an e-blast program to send information to them. Invite the concierge in if you can, either individually, have them bring a guest. You're going to get more if you do that. Concierge events, we do that where we'll bring in concierge and hotel guest services people, which that's an important asterisk right now. Every hotel has someone acting as a concierge. Some of them have traditional concierge teams. Some of them have guest services folks who are also playing the role as concierge. So it's a little harder to identify those people. You got to jump in and ask questions, find out who the right people are. I can tell you it's a lot of work right now because there's been a lot of turnover and changing roles within hotels. So it's been sort of a different opportunity. And for that person who asked the question, we have an event, the Hospitality and Tourism Summit, April 19th. If you're looking to go and integrate with concierge, you can call me or look at our website and you'll see information about that.
Thanks, Tim. Chip, anything to add?
Tim's the expert. He nailed that guy.
He is. Great. So question for both of you. We've got, for example, we got the National Restaurant Association show coming up. Everyone's very excited about that coming back in May. What are some just general tips of how to attract conventioneers to my restaurant? Chip, you want to start?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. One, serve up an ad on social to the followers of the show's page, or those that are going to be a likely audience of the show. That's the easiest way to do that. Otherwise, and this is a little bit more old school, take a look at the list of vendors, see if you can get your hands on that, and then offer them something. They're going to need to entertain their clientele during the show. And a really easy way is to offer something specific to them that they might be able to then use, if it's use of the private dining room or a special experience for their company, something they can pass out in booth. I know that those conversations are starting right around now, if they haven't just yet. So whether it's the digital space or sort of the old school knocking on doors, I think that there's a ton you can do to target the show.
Thanks, Chip. Tim?
Yeah, a couple of things. We just literally sent out a convention calendar to our customers yesterday with a list of the dates, what they are, how big, and then also hashtags for the shows. So that's a free thing you can do. You put the hashtags for the shows in your social, and so you're part of their conversation about what's going on. So it's a way to put your restaurant front and center there. It takes a little more time and focus because you're doing a targeted method, but it can be very effective. If anyone wants that, I'm happy to send that to you, that calendar with the hashtags. My email is tim@ateema.com, ATEEMA.com. I'll happy to follow up with you. The other one I mentioned earlier, which is you could geofence, do digital marketing by geofencing McCormick Place. And if the convention is big enough and important enough to you, you could also, at the same time you're geofencing McCormick Place, geofence the host hotels for that convention. If it's citywide, obviously you'd want to geofence all of the hotels. But depending on how big and important it is to you and how much of a match, those are some tactics.
Great, thank you, Tim. Thanks, Chip. So we got time for just a couple more questions. This one here is specific, but maybe we can talk about more broadly about how to capture data. With Google's plans on sunsetting third-party cookies by 2023, what are some strategies for restaurants to gather more first-party customer data? Anything that, or maybe more broadly about what are some ways to make sure that you are capturing customer data or using all the tools in your toolbox to do that?
I mean, tying back to what Chip said earlier, that your front of house has got so much leverage in terms of carrying your message to your customers. How can you use that process of interacting with the customers to get more email addresses and be more and build a more robust email database? So if it's your check holders, if it's an interaction, if it's some sort of promotion, just to get in front of it and be more consistent with it. Make sure you're pulling any emails that you get from any other partners or vendors, OpenTable, whomever you're doing business with, so that every email is treated as gold. And sometimes, restaurants get more focused on the operations than things like this, and it falls through the cracks. So maybe you have to go in and turn the shift the focus or the perspective on this for your organization. So they go, look, I don't like doing this. I'm not, I'm here to serve people. I don't really want to ask them where they heard of us or can I get their email address. However, if you can illustrate to them how this is going to really change how we can market our place, and that has an effect on all of our team and our employees, maybe you can get people to think a little bit differently and start being proactive now. So by that time, your customer list and prospect list and your process for growing that are both much more robust than they are today.
Great advice. Thanks, Tim. Chip?
Yeah, I would just add real quickly, there are a lot of software platforms out there right now that are good at scraping a lot of that data. That's the first thing I would say on a more of a digital or web basis, or even the spending information that a restaurant is able to provide. But beyond that, I think incentivization is the way to go. Like, there always needs to be a return for that, particularly with the issues around security with personal data and things like that. So I would just incentivize it and just make sure it's completely transparent.
Chip, with the scraping tools, we use some of them as well. What's the specific tactic for where would you scrape to build a database for a restaurant? Like, what were you thinking there?
I don't know, to be honest with you. It's a little bit outside of my area, but I will say they'll look at obviously pixelating an ad or looking at tracking, I think, on web behaviors. But obviously that's up until 23. There are a lot of, and I'm blanking off the top of my head, there are a couple of different software providers that will look at, somebody actually, a member just shared this with me yesterday, that will look at spending habits at the restaurant and pull that way. But I don't know off the top of my head.
So one tactic, I thought you might have had a specific one in mind, and
no,
I'm looking to learn. So, but one that we've used is, for example, we will target like a Cranes list and look for specific businesses in a specific category to reach out and find, meeting and event planners there. And so you can use some of those tools to find people, and that it's a significant amount of work. But if you're a restaurant that knows that there's a big corporation a block from me and I'm not getting anything out of there, that could be a good use case as well, to say, there's 5,000 people in that building. I need to figure out how to get their email addresses and then reach out to them, put them in our database. So that could be another tactic.
Yep.
Great ideas to consider. So one final question for both of you, and I want you to try to give me your quick 30-second answer. If I'm a smaller independent restaurant, maybe I'm new, maybe I've been around for a while, but I really just don't put any money into marketing, but I want to. I say I want to do, $1,000 a month. That's what I have to use. I've got my social pages, I've got my website. kind of just haven't really invested in any marketing until this point. What do you think is the most important thing that I should be doing if I'm ready to, kick off a new limited budget marketing PR program for my restaurants? Chip, you want to go first?
Sure. 3 things. One, make sure all of my online listings and my website are completely current. Nothing distracts more than outdated information. And it's really a ding on the brand. And that doesn't cost any money whatsoever, unless those listings are paid for, of course. But on average, I just make sure everything's current. Now, if I had dollars to spend, I would invest in social media. Particularly paid social media, as Tim referenced earlier, just with interest targeting or geo-targeting, or I would invest in email marketing. I think both have seen tremendous returns for my partners that are looking for conversion for very specific needs, i.e. a promotion, a day of the week, things like that, as opposed to the general awareness that PR can sometimes provide.
Awesome. Thank you, Chip. Tim, what would you say?
I would say that's a good way to kind of put your toe in the water. Definitely, you can, with social media advertising, you could target zip codes, you can target interests, people who want to eat out and so forth. So that's a good method. It's doubled in cost in the last year. You could also use programmatic for that. You have to have a partner to do that though, but programmatic right now is significantly cheaper from a CPM standpoint. You could do local targeting as well. That would be another option. And Chip mentioned email again. It's the highest converting, tool that you have. And if you can get your team on board, figure out ways to constantly build your database of people that are not only coming to your restaurant but interacting with your restaurant, people who send you emails and ask a question, people who look for pricing, all those, every single email that comes in, you can be doing that with. There's also from a social media standpoint, I mentioned this tactic earlier. You can take your email database and upload it into Facebook, and then hit those people with ads. Now, for that to be effective, you have to have the same email address that they use for their Facebook account. If that makes sense. So if they give you their personal email address and Facebook, in their Facebook channel, they're using a different email address, well, then you wouldn't capture them. So you won't get every customer if you upload your customer database, email database into Facebook, but you'll get a good amount, and it's so highly efficient. Like, you're speaking to the converted, you can drive more increased frequency with your existing clients, and there's really no waste. So it's a very targeted way to do so.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Chip, both very much for sharing your time, expertise, a lot of valuable information that you've shared today. So we really appreciate it. So we're at the end of our time. I'd like to thank you all for attending. And once again, thank our panelists, Chip Bouchard, principal at PR firm Kinship, and Tim O'Malley, CEO of Atima Media and Marketing. I'd also like to thank the Cook County Small Business Assistance Program for their continued efforts to provide resources, information, and technical assistance to small businesses to help with their recovery. Following the conclusion of the webinar, attendees will receive an email with links to the webinar recording as well as the presentation. Our recording will also be made available on the Illinois Restaurant Association's website, so please feel free to check it out there, as well as many other resources for Illinois restaurants, hospitality businesses, and allied partners. Thank you all for attending, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.